time I had tried to speak in public, and I took speech classes. I did everything I could to get over this, but it was always a mess. My voice audibly shook, my hands and body shook, my face got red, I broke out in a sweat. It was just a disaster. Even though I knew all of the material, just the presentation of it was terrible. And I knew I could not walk into a high school classroom like that. We all know how that would go. So what I did was I took a breath and I pictured I was playing a role. If I couldn't be a confident teacher, I would play the role of a confident teacher and do what a confident teacher does until I could be one. Sometimes just showing up and doing what we have to do is enough, and God will help us. Sometimes, though, there's something thrust upon us. Life will give us something that we weren't ready for, and we have to step up and go forward. I remember the night Devin was born. I was so tempted to push that call button to let the nurse come and change his diaper and take care of him, because it was not something I was familiar with. And I remember those first few days at home when we didn't have a clue what we were doing. Looking back now, I can chuckle at that because, as you know, you quickly become good at all of those things. But sometimes life happens when we are not ready and not prepared for it. Peter knew what that felt like. He had just witnessed Jesus perform an incredible miracle, feeding over 5,000 people with just a few loaves and a couple fish. Then Jesus sent the disciples in the boat across the Sea of Galilee while he went up to the mountain to pray, and a storm rolled in, and of course, we know the story. The disciples were terrified. They were likely to die in that situation. Peter getting out of the boat, I can't even imagine that. If I was in that boat and the storms were what they were, I would have been curled up in the fetal position on the bottom of the boat, not contemplating getting out and walking through that. But can you imagine the sheer courage it took for him to swing his legs over the side of the boat and step out onto the waves? He actually took some steps on the water. That's something impossible. But then doubt set in. He took his eyes off of Jesus and started paying attention to the thunder and the waves and all the danger, and he sank. The same Peter who had just taken a few bold steps in faith now began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me," and immediately Jesus reached down and pulled him to safety. The moment Peter gave his doubt more attention than his faith, his fear pulled him under. And here's the thing, faith and doubt were already coexisting within Peter before this moment ever came about. He was willing to step forward, but not without questioning first. He didn't just leap into the water. He asked Jesus for assurance. "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He wasn't sure that he could do it, but he stepped forward anyway because he trusted Jesus. If Jesus said he could do it, he trusted that it was possible. Now, we often think of faith and doubt as being opposites, as if having some doubt means we don't have faith. But I don't think that's true. What do you think the opposite of faith might be? I would like to pose that the opposite of faith is certainty. We like to think that faith means being absolute, but uncertainty is dangerous. Why? Because certainty demands proof. It says, if I will believe all of this once you prove it to me. Okay, well, that's not belief, that's looking at a proof. Faith says, I will trust even when I doubt, because I trust the one who is leading me or speaking to me. Certainty makes our faith rigid. When we are absolutely sure about something, how much time do we spend wrestling with it or thinking about it? We don't. It's done. We check that box because we know. We know what is right. We know. In seminary, one of my professors told us time and time and time again, he said, throughout your time in ministry, whenever you are absolutely certain, when you are sure you know the answer, when you are sure you are right, when you are so certain that you would be willing to walk up that hill and die on it, that is when you are most likely to be dead wrong. Certainty is an enemy to faith. But doubt stretches us and moves us forward. If we already know exactly how everything works, we don't have to, because we know and we're certain and we have the answers. But faith is trust. Faith is trust not in an outcome. Faith is trust in the one who never lets us go. There's a difference there. When I was younger, my faith was dependent upon outcomes. But as I grow, as I age, as I have more experience in this life, I realize faith doesn't have a lot to do with outcomes, but more about trusting the one who holds me and calls me. Faith is stepping forward when we don't know where the path leads. Faith and doubt work together, but fear can shut them both down. So let's talk about that relationship among faith and doubt and fear. Doubt asks, can I trust this? Which leads our faith to stretching. Imagine back in your life when you've been in a situation when you didn't know if you could do it, when you didn't know if you were enough to rise to the occasion. I'm sure you had some doubts, but it stretched you, and you stepped forward, and ultimately you did it, and you came through it. Fear says, I can't do it, I'm not safe, I'm out. When Peter stepped out of the boat, he had doubts. No doubt, right? He had his doubts, but he trusted Jesus that was calling him. But when he took his eyes off Jesus, his fear took over and it sank him. So, where does that leave us? Most of us are not standing in a boat, contemplating whether or not to step out and walk on water. If you are, please let me know. I want to go with you. I want to see that kind of faith in action. But we are standing on the edge of decisions, struggles, or seasons where faith, doubt, and fear are colliding. Maybe you feel like I did, standing at that door to the classroom, wondering if you have what it takes. Maybe life has thrown something at you without asking you if you wanted it or were even ready for it, and you have to step up and find a way forward through it. Maybe you feel like Peter, bold enough to step out, but afraid you're sinking. Well, Jesus wasn't afraid of his doubt. He wasn't waiting for his certainty. He didn't tell Peter, all right, come back again sometime when you're certain. Jesus reached out in his doubts, in Peter's doubts. Jesus reached out, and he always reaches out to us. I mean, it's up to us if we're going to take his hand or not, but it's always there. So maybe a better question to ask ourselves when we are in the thick of it is, am I doubting in a way that will help me grow? Or am I fearing in a way that will hold me back? Once again, am I doubting in a way that will help me grow? Or am I fearing in a way that that will hold me back. Either way, get out of the boat. Not because you have all the answers, not because you've overcome your doubts, but because faith was never about certainty. It was always about trust. Peter didn't step out into the water because he was sure it would work. I don't think he was. He stepped out in the water because Jesus said he could, and he trusted him. Maybe Jesus is calling you to step into a new challenge, or a new role, or a new position, or opportunity. Maybe Jesus is calling you to forgive yourself, or to heal something within, or to heal or reconcile a broken relationship, or to trust someone again after a disappointment. Maybe Jesus is calling you to step into the unknown, to follow without knowing where the path will lead, to say yes even before you feel ready. God calls us to the moment and then equips us to go through it. And maybe like Peter, you're already in the water. Maybe you've already taken those fearful steps, but now the wind is howling and you feel the splash of the waves on your face and it's too much and you've taken your eyes off Jesus and you feel like you're drowning. And if you are, remember this: Jesus doesn't let you sink. He's not waiting for you to have perfect faith. He's just waiting for you to grab onto his hand. Faith doesn't mean never having doubt. It means stepping forward anyway. Faith doesn't mean never feeling fear. It means not letting fear have the last word. And finally, faith doesn't mean certainty, but faith means trusting in the one who goes before us. So get out of the boat. So what if your voice shakes and your hands tremble and you feel unsure? Take the step anyway. Do it because Jesus is already there waiting for you. And if you fail, so what? I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. So what if you fail? I have more and more respect for people's failures than I ever did before. When in the middle of the pandemic, I was on a Zoom call with other people with other backgrounds and whatnot. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There was a person on there, he was a research scientist, and he was working on new technology. He didn't go into it too much because we wouldn't have understood it anyway, and it was proprietary. But he said, I know I can transform health in this country. I know that with this technology and what I do, I can change the way people understand health and how it's practiced in this nation. But I'm afraid I'll fail. At that point, I unmuted and I said, are you kidding me? If I tried to revamp healthcare and the way people view health in this country and I failed, I would print t-shirts and wear one everywhere I went that said, hey, I failed at trying to change this thing for all of us. And I would make sure everybody knew it. Not many people are willing to step out of that boat. So what if you fail? You got out of the boat. That's amazing. So can we forget about failing? Let's just set that aside. By the way, Peter failed. But is that what we talk about with this passage, that he failed? No, we talk about he got out of the boat and he walked. So wherever you are, whatever you're being called to, get out of the boat. Not because you have all the answers, not because you have a sense that you're ready, and not because you don't have any doubt, but because Jesus calls you, and that's enough. Thanks be to God. Amen. Shall we sing? Please stand as you're able. anyone like to share how you've been blessed this week?
Well, Debbie made it home Friday, so
Yeah.
she's doing real well. So thank you for all your prayers and concerns.
That's great news. It's great news. By the way, did you stop the live stream?
Did I stop it?
Yeah.
Oh, oh.
Thank you. Yeah, there were a ton of people at Bunkers last night for backpacks, so that's fantastic.